Fall is the epitome of cozy foods, and sometimes they can leave you feeling a little bit heavy. So today I want to share 3 of my favorite easy soup recipes you can make that will leave you feeling light and nourished, even in the cozier months. I want to share with you my chicken soup recipe that is one of my favorites because it's not just loaded with noodles or rice. It really is about the chicken and lots of good veggies. So it's going to have a bunch of different veggies. We're going to have red bell pepper, onion, carrots, lots of garlic, chicken, and it truly is more of a chicken soup. And so it's perfect for going into the fall and winter when you want something that's going to be super hearty and cozy and still really good for you. I love finishing it off with a bunch of parsley, a bunch of lemon juice. It is so cozy. You're not missing out on anything, but it is still so healthy for you. And you can keep these ingredients on hand in your fridge and in your pantry all fall and winter long and have this soup every single week. You can batch it, you can make it ahead, and it's so simple because I'm doing it in the Instant Pot, which makes everything just a breeze. It's great. You can make it ahead of time, put it in your fridge. I think you could even freeze this because there's no cream in it or anything. It's just a nice brothy soup. So you can make a bunch, feed it to people when they're sick, or give it to a friend when they're sick. So this is a staple soup to have on hand in your house. I'm starting by taking a couple chicken breasts, and we'll season that really well first to kind of build the base of our broth and give us just so much flavor. So I like to go ahead and put the seasoning on the chicken, and then we'll brown that first in the Instant Pot. So I'm adding some salt, some pepper. I do onion powder and garlic powder, oregano, and season it really well because it's going to add so much flavor to the entire soup. This soup is one I come back to again and again because I always have chicken breasts in my freezer or chicken thighs, and you can use either in this one, but today I'm using chicken breast just because it's a little bit lighter and I just like to use what I have on hand. So if I have chicken breasts one week and chicken thighs the next, that's fine because you can use either in this soup, or you could even do a combination of the two. So I'm going to go ahead and prep all of my veggies. I'm using a red bell pepper, I'm using celery, onions, carrot, and I even have a few russet potatoes to add heartiness to the soup. So I turn my Instant Pot onto saute mode and I spray a little bit of avocado oil in the bottom of it just so that my spices don't stick to the bottom of the insert. And then I'm going to brown my chicken on both sides, and that helps to lock in all of that flavor and lock in the juices so the chicken isn't dry, but it's super flavorful. And just browning it for a second in the Instant Pot also helps to build up flavor in the bottom of the pot. So while those are searing on both sides and they don't need to be cooked all the way through, I'm going to go ahead and prep all of those veggies. So I like to do a nice fine dice on all the veggies, and then I'll make the carrots a little bit bigger. I'll mince up that garlic really well, and then I'll cut my potatoes into about 1/2-inch cubes. You don't want to make them too big because you want to make sure that they cook all the way through and that you can get a spoonful of all the veggies in one bite. So once that chicken has been seared, I'll turn off saute mode, and then I will add in all of those veggies we just prepped. And then I'm also going to add in some tomatoes, and you can use regular diced tomatoes. I like to use about a 14.5-ounce can of diced tomatoes, but I had a can of whole tomatoes in my pantry, so I'm just taking those and ripping those up with my fingers. So I wanted to share with you one of my favorite resources for keeping my kids healthy, and that is our Hiya vitamin. We take their regular kids multivitamin, all 4 of my kids do. They also have the superfood and greens powder, which is so great because you can mix it into just regular milk to give them just maximum nutrition and nourishment in a way that they actually will like taking. This is one of our new shipments. It comes in this really fun box, and it has everything you need. It has a scoop, it has the refillable container, and my kids love to decorate this. They always include stickers so my kids can decorate it and put their name and just make it personalized to them. Hiya is made for kids ages 2 and up, and it's just a simple and clean way to give them some daily greens and superfoods that they'll actually eat. You could even put it in something easy like a popsicle and just make it that much more fun. So it's a super versatile superfood mix that you can use in things your kids already love. If you want to check out Hiya too, you can go to hiyahealth.com/healthyelizabeth, and they're going to give you 50% off your first order. So you can try it out, see if your kids love it too at a really great price. So head to hiya.com/healthyelizabeth. I love just how rustic this is. I'm just taking whole plum tomatoes and pulling them apart with my fingers, and it makes a beautiful texture. You kind of have a brothiness from the tomatoes, but then you have the big rustic chunks. So I'll add those in along with a lot of broth, and you can either use chicken broth or you could even use a vegetable broth if that's what you have or if that's what you've made homemade. Put the lid on, seal the valve, and set it to pressure. I like to pressure cook the soup on high for about 20 minutes or so. You just want to make sure that all of your potatoes are nice and tender and that chicken gets cooked through all the way. But it goes so quickly because we already seared the chicken, so it's already partially cooked before we ever start pressure cooking it. So once it's done, I'll just pull those chicken breasts out and I will either shred them with a fork or you can chop them up with your knife and then put that back into the soup. And I like to let it sit in the broth for just a few more minutes before I serve it so that chicken can absorb all of that delicious broth. And in the meantime, I like to chop up a bunch of fresh parsley or any kind of herbs that you love in your chicken soup, and I'll add that in and check it for seasonings. And either right before I serve it or straight into the bowl, I love to squeeze over a nice heavy squeeze of lemon juice, and occasionally I'll top it with a little Parmesan cheese too, and it is just the perfect, healthier, lighter fall meal. Love a cozier tomato soup pretty much any time of year, whether it's summer and my tomatoes are fresh and we've got tons to use up in the garden, or when it's heading into fall and you want something cozy that you can use some of your summer produce from, and you can dip a grilled cheese in it because I love a good sourdough grilled cheese. And so I love tomato soup. So I'm going to show you how I make a really easy weeknight friendly, you can throw it together really quickly, tomato soup, but I find a way to add some protein in there too, so it's actually like a full meal. So I've got about a cup of basil, and that is going to go into the soup later along with a little bit of thyme, and I'll show you the little secret ingredient that I'm going to sneak in that soup that gives it better texture and heartiness and extra protein. Okay, I'm doing 2 big sweet onions because I like a lot of veggies in there that are just kind of in there, and then some garlic too. You can do 3 to 4 cloves usually for this size pot. This must be really fresh garlic because I cannot get it open. All right, I'm gonna do 3 big cloves of garlic. And then for your tomatoes, I like to keep it super easy because I like to be able to put this together on days that we're super busy or we've been homeschooling all day and we need something fast for dinner. So I love keeping this in my pantry. It's a pantry staple, and so I can make this soup pretty much anytime. And that is a tin of crushed tomatoes. I like to get the San Marzano ones. Those are gonna have the best flavor and texture. And you wanna make sure they're crushed, not just diced or whole or plum. You want to make sure they're crushed because that's going to make it the best tomato soup texture. So I'm using 1 big 28-ounce can, and this recipe is so easy to double or triple, so you can make a huge batch of it and freeze some for later, and then you'll reheat it and just add a little bit of cream. So it's amazing for make ahead too. This soup is so easy. You're not even going to believe how much flavor and just coziness are in this pot when you try it. So I just have a soup pot here, and I've added a couple tablespoons of avocado oil combined with a couple tablespoons of butter, because just again, starting with basic ingredients and really building up that flavor. So I'm adding in my onion, and I'll add in my garlic in a few minutes because I want to make sure it doesn't burn, but I like to get those onions nice and softened. And I almost kind of make a brown butter out of it by letting my butter heat up and sizzle first, then adding in those onions and really just getting like a deep golden look to my onion before I move on with the rest of the soup. One of the key ingredients to this soup is adding in some fresh herbs, and I actually do a combination of two. So I ran out to my garden and grabbed some fresh thyme. We're just going to use a couple teaspoons, or even 1 teaspoon adds that little bit of earthiness to the soup and just gives it a well-rounded flavor. And then I love adding in a big handful of basil. It's optional. I think with the thyme you would still have a delicious flavor, but if you can get your hands on some fresh basil, just adding in a nice fresh handful makes such a difference. Another thing that I like to add in is a little bit of coconut sugar. So it's almost like how I add a brown sugar into my chili, and it just makes all of the flavors balanced. Something about that coconut sugar with those acidic tomatoes, just even the tiniest bit, makes it such a different flavor. It makes it taste like it's ripe and just fresh and delicious. I'm adding in a bunch of broth into the soup. You can use chicken broth or vegetable broth, and then I'll add in that coconut sugar, lots and lots of salt because we really need to season those tomatoes, and then I'm using a little pinch of red pepper flakes just to bring out the flavor in the tomato. It doesn't really make it spicy, but it just helps to make it feel nice and warm and cozy. Now for my secret ingredient that adds a great creamy texture and protein to this soup, it is cannellini beans. So I like to use 1 to even 2 cans of cannellini beans, and I just rinse them and drain them, and then I add those straight into the soup and let it simmer, and those beans just turn the soup into the creamiest and hearty tomato soup. So it's not just kind of liquidy tomato, but it has some heartiness and texture to it. My soup has been simmering for about 15 minutes, and this is the point where the soup starts to thicken. You can kind of tell it's changing texture. It's starting to get a little more stew-like, and then mix it together and you can just tell the texture is starting to thicken. So now I'm going to go ahead and add in that heavy cream and stir that in and let it cook for about 10 minutes more. Then I'll turn off the heat and finish up the soup. It just brings this whole thing together and makes it filling enough to have it even for dinner, and especially with a nice grilled cheese along the side like I'm going to do today, that is what you want. So I have some slices of my everyday sourdough bread. This is a nice crusty bread, but it's super soft and chewy in the inside, and I'm just taking a little bit of Munster cheese and putting that inside of it, and then I like to butter the outside on both sides. And sometimes I will do this in a skillet or in a cast iron, but today I'm actually going to put this on my grill outside because I'm still soaking up all of the fall weather and it's just so beautiful. So I thought, why not head outside for a few minutes and make this almost like a grilled panini? What could be better with a delicious tomato soup? The next soup is one that I've been experimenting with and playing around with, and that is because I'm always trying to find more ways to incorporate plant-based proteins like chickpeas and beans, lentils, split peas, all those kinds of things that are really economical and they're full of protein and fiber. So I'm always trying to find new recipes to add those into that really have the same depth of flavor you get with animal proteins. So this is a chickpea soup, and it is all the creaminess and coziness of fall, but it's somehow still really light. So I'm starting with a couple sun-dried tomatoes. I love the mixture of sun-dried tomatoes with cream, and we're gonna make this a creamy soup by adding in some coconut milk, which is another really great non-dairy milk, and it's full of healthy fats too. Coconut is really good for our brains. So I'm using that along with the sun-dried tomato to almost make like a Tuscan style chickpea soup, and I wanted it to have a little bit of a kick as well. so I'm using some Calabrian chilies to just kick it up a notch and give it even more flavor, because I find that that's really key whenever you're cooking with lentils and legumes and beans. It's all about adding as much flavor in there as you can. So I'm starting with some onions as the base of my soup, and I'm seasoning that with some salt and some oregano. Then I'll add in my garlic and my chickpeas that I've drained and rinsed, and I'm just using a couple cans. And then I'll add in some veggie broth, about 2 or 3 cups. You just want to kind of do it to the consistency that you want. Let that simmer until the chickpeas are nice and tender. Then I like to go in with my immersion blender and just blend about a quarter of those chickpeas up just to help thicken the soup. And then I'll add in that coconut milk, most of the can. I'm not using the entire can, but I used most of it. And then I added in my Calabrian chilies and several handfuls of fresh baby spinach. So this is just like a dream of plant-based goodness right here. It's so healthy, but it's still so cozy. You could even add in a little bit of pasta, like ditalini, to it. I just ended it with a little bit of fresh basil on top to keep with the plant-based soup here, and it is so good and really inexpensive to make. So I hope that you try these recipes out and let me know if you do. Don't forget to hop on my email list. I leave it linked down below so you can get all of my content. That way we stay connected. Thanks so much for joining me in the kitchen.